Happy Friday, Fruit Friday that is, because today we're going to talk a little bit about fruit on a low-carb, high-fat diet. I get this question all of the time, so I'm going to try to cover it here because fruit isn't a simple answer, quite frankly. So let's talk about some of the basics. First of all, let's begin with a kind of continuum when it comes to fruit. I'm going to start at one end of the continuum, which is a question I also get all the time. What do my kids eat? I'm going to put my kids at one end of the continuum. What about my kids and fruit? My kids eat fruit. We feed them fruit all the time. Why? My kids aren't trying to lose weight. They are exquisitely insulin sensitive, and they don't get much else in the way of fructose. So for my kids, I feel comfortable having them eat fruit. They get fiber from it. They get some micronutrients from it. They eat it pretty regularly, but it doesn't make up a huge percentage of any given day in their life. And more importantly, again, what my kids aren't eating in addition to fruit. They don't ever have fruit juices. And we'll come back and talk about fruit juices specifically in just a little bit. So one end of the continuum would be my kids. I feed them fruit. I don't feel bad about that. I think it's a good choice for them most of the time. All right, then in the middle, I would say I would fit into that middle mold. I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm on a very strict low-carb, high-fat diet. I eat some fruit. Some fruit, I restrict it to berry fruit, and I restrict it to about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup of berry fruit per day. Then let's talk about the other end of the continuum. People who have significant metabolic issues, such as type 2 diabetes. I think for those patients, fruit should be restricted quite a bit. Now, I'm not saying they couldn't ever have berry fruit, but what I like to tell to my patients is consider fruit as a garnish. So instead of eating a big bowl of strawberries with a little bit of whipping cream on it, think about a big bowl of whipping cream with a few strawberries in it. So for patients who are really trying to get their blood sugars under control or working on losing weight, or potentially both, I think fruit should be something that you want to consider limiting. All right, so why? What's the big deal with fruit? I mean, the big deal with fruit is it contains a lot of fructose. I mean, that's primarily what's in fruit. Now, fruit isn't the same as straight fructose like in fruit juice because fruit also comes with fiber. And that's the big plus side with fruit. And the argument that a lot of people will make that we shouldn't be limiting fruit at all. And the fiber, no doubt, makes fruit much more redeeming than in the form of fruit juice where there's no fiber. But the problem is that fructose load can really wreak havoc in someone who already has insulin resistant issues because the fructose, even in the lower quantities in fruit, can cause problems with blood sugar control and fatty liver because it leads to de novo lipogenesis, which we talked about a little bit in the how carbohydrates become fat in your blood talk. So that's the real issue. Now, we consider berry fruit the best option because, number one, quite frankly, it's simple to remember. If it's a berry fruit, it's reasonable, and then you don't have to memorize all these specific lists. What are the worst kind of fruits? They tend to be the tropical fruits and grapes. Those tend to be really high in their glycemic index, very high sugar content in those. With the berry fruits, they tend to be higher in fiber. And again, if we're trying to make a choice, those tend to be the more reasonable choices. Now let's talk a little bit about our past, our ancestral past in fruits. Well, we don't have exact science, data, information on exactly what the fructose content was in the fruits in the past. But we have some good things that we can look at as examples. And the first one that I would call in when we talk about our fruit now compared to fruit in the past is a Honeycrisp apple. Probably the most popular kind of apple. Honeycrisp apple, why does everybody like it? Because it's really sweet. Well, you know what else about a Honeycrisp apple? It's only about 20 years old. Honeycrisp apples were created to feed our hunger for sweeter and sweeter fruit. Another example is take a wild strawberry. I mean, they're small and they're just not as sweet. And so the fruit that we're finding here today has been made to have a lot more fructose in it. And what happens is we feed that I want sweeter and sweeter things, which of course leads what? To wanting sweeter and sweeter things, and on we go. I like to always recall a story when it comes to the sweetness of fruit that I got from a patient when we were discussing fruit in our new patient lecture. Her eyes got really big and she shot her hand up and said, "I get it now." She and her husband had just gotten back from a trip to Hawaii. And as part of that trip, they went on a tour of a pineapple plantation. And what was one of the big selling points at the pineapple plantation? We have engineered our fruit to be the sweetest pineapples on earth. Great. Just what we all need, right? Sweeter fruit. Sweeter yet again. So again, when it comes to fruit, it's not a simple answer. Some people, like insulin sensitive kids who are struggling with their weight, can eat it, even daily. Again, when we look at their total percentage of it, I do try to make sure that it's not a huge percentage of any given day. But when mixed with an otherwise low sugar diet, it's totally reasonable for those kids. And again, for me in the middle, who follows a low carb, high fat diet, but doesn't need to lose any weight, isn't working on trying to lose weight, and is also insulin sensitive, I feel like a reasonable amount is fine. Again, I limit it to 1/3 of a cup maximum a day, but I do that sometimes. Insulin resistant people, I think that's a much harder case to make for putting fruit in on a regular basis. So I want to go back though to what I was talking about before with the insulin sensitive crew, my kids, and the fact that one of the reasons that they're still insulin sensitive is we don't push fruit juice. We've never allowed fruit juice. We've never had it in the house. And this is a really difficult thing because, believe me, I'm not coming down on parents. It's difficult to make good decisions for our kids as parents, and parents who are giving their kids juice right now are doing what they've been told was healthy. But the fact of the matter is, no one should be consuming juice. It is absolutely not something that we should be giving to our children. There's no redeeming qualities, and the fructose content of juice is often worse than soda. I can remember giving a lecture to a bunch of 4th graders a couple of years ago, and I brought them in this picture of a liver that said, "I love my liver. Don't feed it soda." And really, we should absolutely add on to it or fruit juice. Those kind of highly concentrated sugar drinks are just plain bad. So teach your kids to love water. It's going to do them a lot of good for now and in the future. When it comes to fruit itself, again, remember, there's a continuum, but if you're talking about someone who's insulin resistant or trying to lose weight, I think it should be limited. Thank you.